They need a break, for God's sakes. And that's why common sense conservatives are calling for an end to gas and diesel taxes from Victoria Day till Labor Day to give Canadians a summer break.
I understand that the Conservatives have made this a challenging conversation because they're busy axing the facts.
That back and forth between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre could be a preview of what's to come this week when MPs return to Parliament Hill for the final stretch of the House of Commons sitting. There's still lots of legislation on the agenda to, in some cases, introduce and others pass, from the proposed capital gains tax increase to pharmacare. So what should each party's priorities be before the summer barbecue season begins? Our Sunday strategy session is here to answer that question. Kathleen Monk is a former Director of Communications to the late Jack Layton. Corey Teneycke was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager and former Director of Communications for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And Scott Reid is former Communications Director to Prime Minister Paul Martin. Hi, everybody. Great to see you on this Sunday. Scott, I'll start with you. How much of an indication do you think those two clips are of what's to come?
Probably pretty high, but I think there's some adjustment needed on the part of the Prime Minister. If I'm Poilievre, I love those two clips. It's 100% of me using my slogan and 70% of the Prime Minister using my slogan. What's not to love? I don't think that's the right attack. Not to be borrowing your slogan, borrowing the slogan, I should say, of your opponent. I think the Prime Minister's got to come up in this next week. Don't get distracted with the legislative calendar of the House of Commons. Find what you've not yet found, particularly last week when the Prime Minister was giving a different news conference on a different topic and a different attack on Poilievre every single day. Find what you have not found yet. A pointed, focused attack on Poilievre, something that actually will make voters rethink their potential support for Poilievre, something that connects with people as they think about reaching into their pocket for gas and groceries. Acts the facts. It's just political sophistry. It doesn't connect with real people. So I would find the wound that really stings Poilievre, and I would pound and pound and pound away on that. That's what they should do this coming week. That's what they should do all summer.
It does seem that they have focused in, Corey, on not a specific critique of Poilievre, but the concept that they will be critiquing him more constantly, if that makes sense, right? That is clearly what did come across over the past few weeks.
Yeah, well, I largely agree with what Scott had to say, but what was missing from his answer is, okay, so what is that attack that's going to resonate? Because I feel they haven't found it yet. And, I agree they need to hone in on something substantive that actually touches voters' lives in a meaningful way. They haven't done that. What you're seeing in the clips is that Poilievre is laser-like focused and continues to be on working people and what the government's doing is negatively affecting their life, be it around the carbon tax or other measures. So, Poilievre, to put it simply, is making it about the voter. And I think the Prime Minister is making a very obscure point about politics and about, facts. I don't know, but there isn't, the attack is missing a core of substance that actually resonates with people. And it's unclear what that attack would be. They've tried on a lot of different lines, and they've yet to seem to land on one that they're going to stick with.
Do they need something very specific in your view, Kathleen, or is it possibly effective to chip away in different ways at the perception of Poilievre, to try and define him on a myriad of different fronts in order to create doubt that they have done successfully with previous Conservative leaders?
Well, what I can say for sure is I think that the Prime Minister going as hard at Poilievre as he is not actually going to change the dialogue much. Like Scott said, he's just going to attack. How is that going to change? What we have right now is two leaders, both Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau, who are mudslinging, who are calling each other, whether it's extremist or a racist. And I think that that kind of divisiveness actually opens up opportunity for Jagmeet Singh to say, hey, it's not just Coke and Pepsi. It's not just McDonald's and Burger King. You have another choice over here. And while the Conservatives are trying to block all the kinds of legislation in the House, which is you're allowed to vote against legislation you don't like. They could vote against pharmacare if they don't want it, but they actually are trying to block it from even coming into the House. They've actually become kind of like the English Canada's version of the Bloc Québécois. They're just going to block everything. And so I think there's an opportunity for Singh to actually get out there and say, hey, We could make Ottawa work for you. So there's lots going on, but there's only 24 days left in the House. So not a lot of time to move on this legislation. And where I would disagree with Scott is that some of this legislation is really important and needs to move through quickly, like the pharmacare bill.
Do you think from a political perspective, what the government does in the House is important to the message that they can land or might not be able to land in the summer, Scott?
Only insofar as if they build up a broader narrative about what's going on. I don't think that selling the fine points of pharmacare or other legislative actions, I don't really think that stuff is tracking. I don't think that people hear it, and I don't necessarily think it has enough resonance and acceptance on the part of Canadians to change the voting outlook. So instead, I think, I'll take up Corey's challenge. What I'd be pounding on is, look, cuts and constant conflict. That's what you're going to get out of Poilievre. It's going to be cuts and constant conflict. Don't point out to people, as the Liberals often do, that, oh, well, he hasn't said where he stands on this. Say where he stands on it. Say that he will cut things that you care about. Say that he will cut things that middle-class families care about. Force him to say, well, no, I won't. That's how you get him into the arena on these issues. So I would pound away on those things, and I would hammer, hammer, hammer. There is this question of how much you use the Prime Minister as a negative battering ram, but since they're not advertising, they've got few other options if they want to get noticed at all.
Yeah, I was going to actually say that because as Kathleen was sort of describing how the Poilievre-Trudeau fight has been unfolding, Corey, it reminded me of the fact that they must not be listening to all three of you who have constantly for like the past year said, you guys should not be the people attacking each other, but they remain so.
Yeah, it comes with the downside, but I've been watching with interest some of the research around perception of these two leaders, and the reality is neither one of them are loved. It's just that Trudeau has worn out his welcome on a whole range of issues, beyond the personal style of how he presents himself. So, like at the end of the day, it's a major issue advantage for the Conservatives because they're landing punches around affordability, which is the top topic for voters out there. And the Prime Minister, it's been more, sort of more of a personal attack line without the substance as to what that is. I think the line that Scott suggested would be a good one for them. Like, I think that's probably where they have to go. I'm just not sure it's enough. I'm not sure it's enough to get them out of the hole that they've dug for themselves around carbon tax in particular.
Yeah, that's the multi-million whatever question.
Question.
Yeah, going into the election, Kathleen. Last word to you.
Yeah, I guess I think Corey brought up the issue of the polling, and there was some interesting polling from Nanos this week that actually said that Pierre Poilievre's negatives are going up. 6 in 10 Canadians are angry or disgusted with him. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're higher for Trudeau, for sure, but I think that is an inherent risk for Mr. Poilievre, that it could turn in, the point I was trying to make earlier about Coke and Pepsi is not just McDonald's or Burger King. There are other options out there, and if the voters out there are saying, oh, we don't like any of you, there's a possibility for a third party to move up the middle.
Although Angus Reid showed that apathy was directed all across the map, which is what I hear every day.
But the negatives are higher for two of them.
If you're saying it's a choice between Coke and Pepsi, what the NDP are putting on offer is some sort of like
Fanta. It's orange crush.
Noxious.
Dude, it's something people want.
It's a noxious orange and green smoothie that is bitter, and there's no sign that anyone is lining up to buy that drink right now. In fact, like, you're continuing to see the NDP slide backwards in the polls. So, like, I think for all the criticism that we're giving to the Liberals, there's a lot there for the NDP. Like, they are going nowhere fast except further back in the polls.
Hope springs eternal. I have to leave it there. Sorry, on this beautiful summer day. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to our Sunday strategy session, Corey Tunick, Scott Reid, and Kathleen Monk.